Hey there and welcome to a Curtis Stage video tutorial. Today's tutorial is in Photoshop. We're going to continue talking about selection tools. So you should have already done a tutorial with me with the wine bottle. If you have, fantastic. Now we're going to kind of take that a step further. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to open up Photoshop. And now what I like to do when I start with these demos is I like to open up the images from my desktop or from a folder on my computer. I like to open them up directly in Photoshop. What I don't like to do is, as of right now, when we're early on in our classes or in these demos, in the beginning demos, I don't like to have a new blank file and drag a picture in. What I like to do is I like to hold down Control on my keyboard and say open with Photoshop, or you could, if you're on a Mac, you could drag it to the dock and open it up in Photoshop like that. Just drop it right on the Photoshop icon and then it's going to open up Photoshop. So that's going to be the best way, and the reason why is that it will not create a smart object for our image, and I'll explain smart objects later on in the semester when you're taking my class, but for now it's just best if these images are not smart objects, and we'll get started from here. So what I'm going to do, if the image looks small on my desktop, there's a great way. We're going to learn a lot of keyboard shortcuts in this class, and one of the great keyboard shortcuts we need to know is how to zoom into an image. So Command on a Mac and plus, or Control on a PC and plus. So Command plus zooms me in, so I just hit plus, 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 plus. I can get all the way down to the pixel level. Right? What is a pixel? Hey, look at those little squares right there. Look at each one of those squares. Each one of those is a pixel. That is a little individual unit of measurement on a computer. That's color. And when you put all those pixels together, it creates a bitmap. This is important for you to know this. This is going to be on your quiz, so you're going to want to remember that. So a pixel is an individual unit of image measurement on a computer. And I can zoom way in, Command plus, 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 see each individual pixel, and Command minus, alternatively, zooms me out. Now, with the wine, but I'm going to expand my window a little bit. Look at this, how I can take Photoshop and expand out, and what I like to do is I like to look over at my toolbar. We've got some selection tools over here. Now, with the wine bottle, we used what was called the magnetic. Now notice on Photoshop that you cannot see it right here. You can't see that magnetic lasso tool here. So if you don't see it here, there's three little buttons right over here on the toolbar. Let's look closely, three little buttons here. If I hold those down, all the rest of the tools are showing up now. This is an interesting thing that Photoshop's doing now. They're kind of minimizing the toolbar. I'm not a big fan of it, actually. If I go to Edit Toolbar, right up at the top there, and this customized toolbar comes up, I can go to Restore Defaults. So I can click Restore Defaults, then click Done, and then all my tools should be showing up where I want them. So I wanted to see that magnetic lasso tool. You might have had trouble with this. If you didn't see this or you couldn't find it in the tutorial, the last tutorial, it's probably hidden. So again, how do we do that? We go to these three little dots down here on the toolbar, go to Edit Toolbar, that's one way you can do it, and Restore Defaults, and then click Done. Okay, and then you've got them. Then you've got all the tools that are supposed to be in here, right? In the order. Now, we use the magnetic lasso tool and we will not use that for this one. We're going to use a simpler tool to select this Mustang. So before we do anything though, I want to add a new layer down here on my layers panel. I'm going to just drag my layers panel out and on its own for a second. And I'm actually, before I do anything, I'm going to kind of get rid of some of these tool panels, or these panels here that I don't need. So I could do this. If you look up in the top corner, I could minimize those and make them a little smaller. I could even do this. I could take this whole tool set. Look how I grab that top gray bar. I could take that whole tool set, hit the little X there, got rid of all those. Now we can go find those again up in Window as needed. We can get any of our panels right here in Window. I don't need any of those. So for the first few demos in this class, you're probably only going to need your toolbar and your layers are going to be the things you're going to need the most. Now watch, I'm going to dock this back in to Photoshop. I'm going to dock that back in there. So now it's in there. I can pull it out with the tab and I can grab it and I can dock it in there. Notice how it turns blue there and then I let go and now it's docked there. Now, let's say I really like this layout and I want Photoshop when it opens up to keep this layout for me. Let's save it. So again, you thought this demo was just about selection tools. It is not. We're going over a little bit of the Photoshop interface. So I'm going to go right up here to the top right corner of Photoshop. There's a little symbol there, a little window symbol with an arrow pointing down. I want to create a new workspace. You can see some workspaces that exist. Don't click on those right now. Let's go create a new workspace. And I'm going to give this workspace a name. I'm going to call it Base Workspace. You can call it whatever you want, but Base Workspace. Or you can call it Base Workspace 1 because you might want to have a few other ones. Now, right here, panel locations will be saved. Yes. If we had keyboard shortcuts that we had changed, we could check that. If we had menus that changed, we could check that. I do want the toolbar to be checked because we did change this toolbar to default it back to its normal. I want that to be in this list. So I'm going to click Save. Now, if I go up here, look at this. It's up here at the top. And if you're ever lost, let's say you go click one of these other ones, right? Look at this. This is a lot of crazy stuff happening here. I was doing a video. I was doing an animation in Photoshop. I've got 3D open, whatever. All these panels, I don't want to see those, right? It could get crazy. Look, I could have this panel here. You could sit down and go, man, I just want to clean all this up. The way to do that is go right up here, click Base Workspace, takes me to my Base Workspace, and you can also reset your Base Workspace if that was a mess. All right, so that gets us kind of going a little bit on the Photoshop interface. Again, you could drag these panels all around. You could put, if you want your layers panel over on the left, you could put it over the left. Save that if you want, right? You could save that workspace. It's up to you. I like my layer panel over on the right, I guess, for some reason. Just be used to it. All right, let's get started on making a selection of this Mustang. We're gonna do it a little bit differently than the wine bottle in demo number 1. First of all, I'm gonna create a new transparent layer. At the bottom of my layers panel, you'll see right down here, click that button. I've got a new transparent layer. What do those checkerboards mean on a layer? What do those mean? Those mean I have a transparency, right? Now let's unlock this layer, the Mustang layer, and we're gonna drag it, we're gonna reorder it. So the Mustang is above the transparent layer. This is now, the transparent layer is now our background layer. Now we can't see anything on, look, I could turn my eyeball off on this Mustang and I can see that I have a transparency right here. I'm gonna turn the eyeball back on. Now, I'm going to go to my Move tool up here. Anytime we want to move an object in Photoshop, that's those 4 little arrows. And look, I could move this around. You can see, okay, well, there's my layer below. I moved this Mustang up and over, and now I can see we're down and over, and now I can see that transparency from layer 1 right there. But I do need to get rid of all this white. I'm going to move this over here, okay? Now, I'm clicked on the Mustang layer. This is important. You want to be on this layer to do this selection. And now we're going to go over to our toolbar. Instead of these tools right here, which we're going to use a lot this semester, all 3 of these lasso tools, they're all selection tools. We're going to go to the next set of selection tools, and we're going to go to the Magic Wand tool. Now, all these tools work very similarly, but we're going to use the Magic Wand tool. It's been around in Photoshop for a long time. I'm going to click that. Up here at the top, there's an options bar. Any tool that we select in Photoshop, there is an options section that goes with it. So that's this area right here. And we've got a tolerance level. So this says how many pixels, if wherever your click point is, what's your radius of pixels around that do you want to select? Now we're going to click white. We're actually going to click the background, not the Mustang, to select the Mustang. You'll see how this works. I mean, to kind of get rid of this background, we're going to select the white. We could have done that with the wine bottle, but I wanted to kind of start you off in a different way because not all backgrounds are this easy. Now, in a minute, we're going to get in and get these windows out of here too. So let's click on our white background. We don't need to adjust this tolerance, but If this was a more complicated background, like a gradient or something, we might need to raise that tolerance level up to include more color. So the lower this number is, the less color needs to be included in your selection. The higher the tolerance number, the more color. You're going to want to write these things down in your notes, I'm going to guess. So for tolerance on selection tools, the higher the number, the more selection colors that it's going to pick up. Wherever I click, it's a single pixel point, and it's looking at the pixels around it. So lower number, less pixels around my click point. Okay, it doesn't matter because I got white here. So look at this. I've got these little dashed lines here. These are called marching ants. It's somewhat the official selection. Now, you can see there's a few marching ants that weren't selected in this because maybe there was a variance in this white. So actually, let's raise the tolerance on this and do it again, but we have to deselect what we did. So I want to get rid of these marching ants. In other words, I want to get rid of the selection. Let's do another keyboard shortcut. This is Command or Control. So Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, Command Control D, deselects the marching ants. That deselects our selection. And now I want to raise this tolerance up. So maybe 5 was a little too low. So let's just go up to like 25 or something like that. That should be enough. Point sample, totally fine. We leave that there. That's taking the single point. These start adding some complicated things on here, but we don't need to get into those just yet. Contiguous just means it's finding color right next to the color of my mouse. So it's continuing wherever I click. So I'm going to now click. And now if I look closely, I zoom in, I didn't see any of those little selections. Okay, let's look at that again. I'm going to Command D, deselect. I'm going to go back down to a low tolerance of, let's say, 5. Right? When I clicked here, look at those. Do you see that little point and that little point and this little one and that little one? They would not be included in my getting rid of this selection. Look at that. So there were some little imperfections in this white background here. So those wouldn't be included. It's kind of a bummer here, right? So you got to look carefully when you're making selections like this because, you know, trained eye, I've got a trained eye, I can see those little things pretty quickly. But some of you would have had a little white flex if we would have just gotten rid of the white right now like this. So again, Command D, deselect. I'm going to raise my tolerance up. Doesn't matter, I'm going to go up here. As long as my tolerance, as long as it doesn't start going into the car, I'm good. Well, with this solid white background and the edges of the car, Photoshop's pretty smart on this. So I'm going to now, remember I'm on my Mustang layer, which got, renamed layer 0 when I took off the little lock. I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard, delete. And there I go. Once I hit delete on my keyboard, with those marching ants selected, it deleted the white around the Mustang. That's awesome. Now I want to get inside these windows here. So I'm going to Command D, deselect. I'm going to zoom in, Command plus. I'm going to use my space bar on my keyboard to move around when I'm zoomed in. So let's say I zoom way in, hold down my space bar, and then I can drag around and move around this image. Alternatively, you could zoom in with this magnifying glass and you could move around with this little hand. But I like to use the keyboard shortcut of Command plus to zoom in and use the space bar to move around the image. Okay, now you can see that this white has some variance in its color. There's some pink in there. So this is going to be, and this image is pixelated. What do I mean by that? The image pixelated. That means that it's compression, right, on this image. Let's talk a little bit about compression. Let's get your notes out. What's compression? So a JPEG image, for example, is a compressed image file. Think of it as like an MP3. MP3s are compressed music files, right? You take a music file off a CD, which is uncompressed or less compressed, and you shrink it down to MP3 size. I know nobody does this anymore because we all use Spotify and whatnot, but let's say you were ripping music off of a CD, or let's say a movie, a feature film, right? Shot on film. When it goes onto Blu-ray, it gets compressed. That means that the computer is trying to find, if we're talking about a digital image, compression is the computer is trying to squish this image down in file size, make the file size smaller so that the image is maybe easier to send on to someone in an email, or it's easier to put up on the web. So when you get an image that's really compressed, you'll start seeing these artifacts because Photoshop doesn't know what to do with these colors that are kind of close. If we saw the original photograph of this, it would be perfectly clean, amazing, no little blocky parts right there, no little pixelated blocks, right? So this is just Photoshop. Let me zoom in. This is Photoshop not knowing what to do with these pixels. It's going, I'm going to take a guess here, right? I'm going to take a guess. I'm compressing this file. I'm going to take a guess of what colors should go right there. It makes the file size smaller, but the result is the image looks crappier. Now, this is just a demo image, so it doesn't matter. Your phone shoots better pictures than this demo image that we're using. But I have to use some low quality images so we can talk about compression. We'll talk about it probably in the next demo as well, just so you got it. Now, I'm gonna lower my, let's see about this tolerance here. We might have to adjust this a little bit. So let's click on, oh good, well at 34, when I click right here in the window, it looks like it got everything here. Now, let's say I could hit delete right now and get rid of that. I'm gonna undo, Command Z is undo. I could hit delete and just go window to window, but let's say I just wanted to add to this selection but skip over this seatbelt. So here what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold Shift down. So I've got this one. I'm going to hold Shift down and get that one. Keep holding Shift down. Look at that little plus that pops up next to my magic wand. I'm going to click this next one. Nice. And then click that one. And now I can hit delete and those are gone. Command D, deselect. I have to deselect after I'm done with this. Now I can get the front windshield. This is even worse. Look at that. It kind of blends down into the hood. So maybe Command D, deselect. Maybe I want to lower my tolerance to maybe, let's say 9. And then maybe add. Watch this. I can just kind of add this and maybe it won't. It doesn't need to be perfect here in this. We'll be getting it perfect in the next set of demos when we talk about masking. But this is close enough. And then hit delete. Nice. Command D, deselect. Now I can zoom out, Command minus. Doesn't shrink the image, it just makes it smaller for us, viewable. And now I've got the Mustang isolated, and this is great. So now I can put things behind this. Okay, so let's do that right now. Let's go onto the internet and maybe find an image of a road, right? And put it behind here. So maybe put Photoshop to the side and let's do a little image search. I'm gonna go to, I'm gonna go here. I've got my Google out here. I'm gonna use Google Chrome. And I'm gonna put road. I'm gonna go to images. And what I want us to do is find maybe like a curved road. Here's the deal. Let's go to tools. Let's go to size. And let's find one that's fairly large so that the image sizes match. Now you're saying, well, what do you mean match? Well, let's take a look. Let's go back to this Mustang for a second. You don't have to, but I'm going to. I'm going to switch to my move tool so I don't accidentally select anything. I'm going to go up here to image, image size, and take a look in pixels. Okay, that's 1280 pixels wide. So I know I need a digital image coming from Google that's at least 1280 pixels wide. So what I want to do is I want to pick large here. And it used to be where you could hover over these things and it would show you what the image size is. It really should still. I don't know why it doesn't actually. I can probably go to search settings and change that maybe somewhere in here. I don't know. They keep changing the image search situation. So if I pick large, it's probably going to fit that, right? It's probably going to be pretty good. When you're working on your projects, you want to try to get as large an image as possible, even if they're just going to be the tiniest little things. Okay, so I also want to find a picture of a road that maybe has a bend in it slightly, like this one, right? That because my car is facing that way. Now, I'm never going to be able to make this look really realistic. Oh, here's one right here. Look at this. It's at night. Yeah, it might be kind of cool. So there we go. Now, if I go to View Image here, View Image, it looks pretty small. I don't know how large that image is. It's only 275 by 183. Look at that right up on top. So I don't want that one. That is the thumbnail of it. Let's find a bigger one. Here, that one's bigger. Look at this. It's 700 by 847. Not big enough yet, though. Let's try to find another one. Oh, there's a crazy road. Okay, this is close enough. 900 by 900. Let's try this one. Now, I have this right here. These are called thumbnails. What I want to do is I want to go to View Image, So I see the image on its own. That's a crazy road. I want to see the image. And now what I'm going to do, watch this. I can take this and drag it right into Photoshop and let go. If you have trouble doing that, you could drag it to your desktop and let go and then bring it into Photoshop. But if you do, watch what you need to do. Let me do that trick too. So I'm going to take it to my desktop. There it is. I'm going to drag it to Photoshop, but it's coming in as what's called the smart object, right? So I can't edit this smart object. Yes, I can size it and whatnot, but I won't be able to edit it if I wanted to edit it. So if you drag it in from the desktop to an open Photoshop window, let's talk about smart objects a little bit. We're going to go to Layer, Smart Objects, and Rasterize. Just trust me, just do it. Layer, Smart Objects, Rasterize. That makes it so it's a bitmapped image and not a smart object. For right now in this class, I'm going to explain smart objects in detail. Just rasterize them. So again, layer, smart objects, rasterize at the bottom. We don't want any of those. Now, the layer order of this is wrong, right? I need the car to be above, so I'm going to take this and drag it below. I also need the road to be bigger. So let's do another keyboard shortcut. I'm on the road layer. And look, guys, I can rename this layer. I can double click right in here and say road and rename that. I could say Mustang or car up here. I mean, I think I know which one's which, but whatever, you could rename them. So I'm going to go to road and I'm going to do my keyboard shortcut for transform, Command T. Now, I'm going to drag this corner. Now, in the old days of Photoshop last year, no, if you're in 2020 or above in Photoshop, which you all should be, you do not need to hold any keyboard modifier down to keep the aspect ratio the same. In fact, it's the opposite now. So if I held Shift now and dragged a corner, it's going to distort the image. Look at this. It's going to distort it. I may not want that. Well, usually I don't want it. So now Photoshop reversed it finally after like 23 years. And now I just can grab a corner. See, I'm grabbing a corner and expanding this. We did this with the wine bottle a little bit. So I'm going to grab the corner and kind of maybe reposition this. So I've got I don't even need my move tool or anything. I can just reposition it while I've got the transform on. So maybe I want something like that. Yeah, I'm not going to get the whole image. It's pixelated as well. It's not a great image. You're going to want to find better images when you work on your projects. But for the demos, it doesn't matter. I'm going to hit the check mark up top or return on my keyboard. And that will apply the transform to the road. Now let's get this car smaller because clearly it needs to get on that road. So I'm going to go Command T. I'm going to bring this down smaller. Now here's the deal. I want to rotate it a little bit. I want to rotate it, get it down smaller, rotate it. Keep going. I can zoom in if I need to, and this will work while I'm doing this. So I want to get it down so it's somewhat. Now, the angle is way off, right? Because clearly this thing would be like, looks like it's on its side now. I guess I could, it'd be really, the best spot for this would be up at the top of the bridge going that way, but we can't see that. So you could make it like flying off the edge. In your you can pick whatever image you want of a road. You can make it, as we get better in Photoshop, you guys, you can make it like flying off the edge, and then you could have smoke coming out the back. We're not there yet. You could have, that could be kind of fun and funny. So there you go. We've got the car kind of rolling, flying off the edge here. Awesome. Now, why, besides this being a pixelated image and this being pixelated, why isn't this car realistic? Let's just talk about that for a second. I mean, we can tell that it's not a car that was in this image, probably, size-wise. I could probably get it a little smaller. Primarily, we can tell that it doesn't fit in here because the angle was wrong, although this angle is looking pretty good if it's going off the road, kind of. It's tumbling to its death. The other reason is the lighting, right? This Mustang, I'm going to zoom in, is lit in a studio, clearly. And, of course, this is a daylight outside picture. So we're not fooling anybody with this car image. I mean, we could, at first glance for a meme on, on Twitter or Instagram or Reddit, it would be kind of funny. But for realism, we're not winning any awards here. Later on in the semester, we'll get there. All right, so that's how we kind of get this car, right? Selection part 2, a little easier selection than that wine bottle, right? Getting that white out of here with the magic wand tool. We'll be talking more selections over the next coming weeks. So this is just, I'm kind of building up how much, how much we need to know with selections, building up how much we can do with the transform tool, right? I mean, there's more than this than just kind of Command T and sizing it and rotating it. By the way, the rotate, again, you don't go right on the corner, you go above the corner, and that gets you that rotate there. There's some other transforms we can do too, and we'll do those in a later tutorial. I will talk about different kinds of transform techniques. We don't need to really talk about them here. All right, so that is our selection demo number 2 in Photoshop. This has been a Curtis Stage tutorial. We'll see you next time.